Welcome. And thank you for joining us. Tonight, we're going back, not just a few centuries, but over 2,000 years, to a world of white stone and golden sunlight, of murmured philosophy and shouted politics, of sandals slapping against dusty marble streets. Ancient Athens. You've heard of it, of course. Birthplace of democracy, cradle of Western thought, the city of Plato and Pericles, of Socrates and the Parthenon. But tonight, we won't be standing at a distance, gazing up at statues or reading dry accounts in old books. Instead, I'd like you to step inside, not as a god or a general or even a famed philosopher, but as something far more telling, an ordinary resident. A man, a woman, perhaps a slave or a metic, or a citizen with a bit too much dust on their feet and not enough olives in their bowl. You'll wake on a straw mat, squint into the Athenian sun, and begin a week you're not likely to forget. This isn't the Athens of textbooks, it's the Athens of grit, of garlic, of shouted accusations and bad sandals, and a place that, charming as it might seem from afar, would likely chew you up and spit you out. Let your eyes grow heavy, let your breath slow, and now, imagine yourself waking up in the city of Athena.
The mat beneath you itches. The night was long, and not in the dreamy way we often imagine when thinking of classical cities under starlit skies. The straw pokes through the fabric, and the scent is musty, tinged with the faint sourness of the earth-packed floor beneath. There is no mattress. There is no privacy, just the quiet creaking of your limbs, and the ever-present hum of the Athenian streets beyond the wall. You awaken early because the city does. There are no clocks, no alarms, but there is a rhythm. The rhythm of animals stirring, of merchants waking, of slaves preparing to fetch water. The light of the sun begins to slip through a slit in the shutter, if your home even has one. This isn't a villa of marble columns. You're not the son of a nobleman or a famed orator. You're simply someone, a resident, a small stitch in the great woven cloth of Athens. Your home is modest. Mud brick walls, dry and cracked in places. The floor is dirt or rough stone. If you're fortunate, a small hearth occupies one corner of the room. In another, a pot of yesterday's lentils has gone cold. There are no chimneys, just smoke that finds its own way upward. You shift your body upright. Your back aches from the night's sleep. You wash with cold water stored in a ceramic basin. There's no soap, just a soft abrasive paste of olive oil and fine ash rubbed gently between your palms. The water drips down your arms onto your tunic. You dry your hands on a cloth that smells of dust. You dress in something simple, a chiton, light and loose, fastened at the shoulders. If it's a cooler morning, you throw a hymation across your body. The fabric is rough woven, not soft. It scratches the skin as it folds across you. There is no breakfast as you'd know it. Maybe a piece of bread left over from yesterday. It's hard by now, and you soak it briefly in water to soften it. If you're lucky, there's a piece of garlic or a slice of dried fig, perhaps an onion, bitter and sharp, peeled with your fingers and eaten raw. It burns slightly as it goes down. But food is not the point. Not here, not now. In ancient Athens, eating is functional. Leisure is reserved for the symposium. At night, for the well-connected, for the male. Your meals are simple because life is. You step outside, and Athens, your Athens, is already alive. There's no paving on the streets. They're dusty, uneven, winding like roots between crowded homes. Chickens dart across your path. A donkey brays nearby, pulling a small cart creaking under the weight of amphorae. Above you, lines of laundry hang between buildings. Flies hover around the fishmonger's shopfront. Even this early, the air smells of smoke, of animal dung, of unwashed bodies and open drains, of roasted barley and fermenting grapes. The city is alive in a way that does not pause for you. You walk carefully. There's no telling what you might step in. And already, voices rise. The Agora, the bustling centre of Athenian life, is swelling with motion. It's a crowded square, filled with stalls and tables, citizens and slaves, animals and ideas. The smell is stronger here, compounded by the press of so many bodies. You walk past a vendor selling clay lamps, past another offering salted fish. An old man with a faded tunic is shouting about figs. Beside him, a boy chases a runaway goat. Somewhere on the periphery, a small group listens to a philosopher. He is barefoot, robed loosely, scratching at the dust with a stick as he speaks. You recognize the cadence, not loud but insistent. He's asking questions, questions without easy answers. The listeners fidget, murmur, shake their heads. They don't come for comfort. They come because it unsettles them, because they want to be reminded that they know nothing. But you're expected elsewhere. If you're a man, and if you're a citizen, and not all are, you have a civic duty. It is not optional. It is not ceremonial. You are expected to attend the ecclesia, the assembly. You climb the slope of the Nix, a rocky outcrop overlooking the city. The sun is strong now. Your sandals slip slightly on the worn stone. There is no shade, no seats, just stone benches, rough and sun-scorched. You sit among other men, merchants, farmers, soldiers, all gathered to debate the workings of their democracy. But this isn't democracy as you know it. There are no ballots, no quiet booths, no solemn lines. Instead, there is oratory, loud, fast, unforgiving. A man stands before the crowd, shouting about grain prices. Another interrupts with a curse. Someone in the back boos. The speaker, undeterred, raises his voice, citing past battles and sacred laws. A third climbs onto the platform to accuse a general of cowardice. You try to follow, but the language is fast, clipped, filled with idioms. You are sweating. The man beside you smells of fish oil. The sun has begun to sting your scalp, and you cannot speak. You are not a citizen. Or if you are, you fear that your accent, your unfamiliarity, will betray you. Because in Athens, words are power. A poorly chosen word can ruin you. A misstep in phrasing, a stumble in logic, and the crowd turns. They laugh, they jeer, they vote. In Athens, you can be exiled by popular vote. Ostracism is not theoretical. Once a year, citizens scratch names onto pottery shards, ostraca, and those who receive enough votes are sent away for 10 years. Democracy, in its infancy, is participatory, but merciless. You retreat. By now, the day is at its peak. The sun rides high. Your skin is red from exposure. You find a shaded corner near a fountain and drink. The water is cool, slightly metallic. Children play nearby, flicking pebbles at one another. A woman in a worn shawl carries a jug on her hip. Her eyes meet yours only briefly. If you're a woman in Athens, life is more private, restricted to the home, the hearth, the walls. You rise early to bake bread, to grind grain, to spin wool. You do not speak in the assembly. You do not dine with men. You are visible mostly at festivals or funerals. But today, you are everyone. You are the body of Athens. Later in the day, you find yourself in a small workshop. The potter's wheel spins slowly, rhythmically. Clay is coaxed into shape by calloused hands. Another man paints fine black lines, scenes of heroes, battles, banquets. A third curses as a vase cracks in the kiln. Craft is everywhere. The city thrives on skilled labour, yet most craftsmen are not citizens. They are metics, foreigners, residents without rights, or slaves owned by households, by the city, by the gods. The sun begins to lower. Shadows stretch across the uneven streets. Fires are lit. Oil lamps flicker behind shutters. In wealthier homes, men recline on couches, sipping wine, discussing virtue and geometry. But you are not among them. You are walking home. Your tunic sticks to your back. Dust clings to your ankles. The city has not changed for you. It has not welcomed you. It has endured you. You return to your mat, the same one, the same itch, the same coarse cloth and warm air and scent of smoke in the rafters. And you wonder how many more days like this you could take. Because Athens, for all its glory, for all its wisdom and legacy and light, is not soft. It is not clean. It is not kind. It is brilliant and brutal, and it does not wait. But even in the dust and the din, there were those who dared to think differently, to speak not of power or war or wealth, but of virtue, of reason, of what it means to live a good life. Let's turn now to one such man. He walked these very same streets, and in the end, he was condemned by them. Socrates, the trial, the man, and the moment that shaped all of Western thought. You wake slowly, not in your own time, but to the distant sound of sandals on worn flagstones, a soft rhythm echoing off stone walls, not rushed, but purposeful. You sit upright, the mat beneath you thin, your back sore from another night on the floor of the prison. Cool morning air drifts in through a small barred window. Dust motes drift lazily, unbothered by your breath. Somewhere down the corridor, a door creaks open. Voices, hushed but strained, filter in. You know today is the day. You're here to witness it. The quiet, deliberate ending of a philosopher's life. And not just any philosopher. Socrates, the man of questions, of sandals and silence, of irritation and insight. The man Athens could not quite bear to keep. But how did we get here? To understand the death of Socrates, we must return not to the prison, but to the city, to its agora, its courts, its politics, and its long, slow exhaustion after decades of war. Athens at the edge. By the time of Socrates' trial in 399 BCE, Athens was no longer the gleaming city of marble and empire. The Peloponnesian War had dragged on for almost 30 years, leaving fields trampled, coffers drained, and spirits brittle. The proud navy was diminished. The Delian League scattered. The plague had visited its wrath. and the brief tyranny of the 30, a harsh, oligarchic regime backed by Sparta, had fractured public trust. Democracy had returned, but it limped. The wounds were fresh. The balance between liberty and order, between openness and stability, was fragile. Into this atmosphere of cautious hope and simmering fear stepped the man who had always asked too much. The philosopher in the marketplace. Socrates, by most accounts, was strange. He walked barefoot through the city, dressed in simple clothes, often unbathed, always unbothered. He held no public office. He published nothing. And yet, he held the ear of the young, the curious, the ambitious. He would stop them, merchants, generals, poets, craftsmen, and ask simple questions. Questions that, as they unravelled, became more like nets. What is justice? Do you know what courage is? Is something good because the gods love it, or do the gods love it because it is good? He claimed no wisdom of his own, only ignorance. And in that ignorance, he held a mirror to the city, to its pride, its contradictions, its hypocrisies. He made the powerful uncomfortable. He made the confident uncertain. And he drew young minds toward him, not with dogma, but with something deeper. An invitation to examine everything. Not everyone appreciated the invitation. The charges brought against Socrates were twofold: impiety, not worshipping the gods of the state; corrupting the youth, leading the next generation astray. But behind these accusations lay deeper fears. Socrates had associations with men many Athenians had come to despise, most notably Critias, one of the 30 tyrants, and Alcibiades, the brilliant but erratic general whose political betrayals were legendary. And yet, Socrates had not plotted rebellion. He had not called for insurrection. He had simply asked his questions. Still, in a city wounded by war and fearful of collapse, words could be dangerous. And so, Miletus, Anytus, and Lycon, the accusers, brought him to trial. A trial that would define not only his fate, but the meaning of philosophy itself. There are no wigs, no gavels, no robes. The courtroom is a gathering of 500 Athenian citizens, men chosen by lot. They sit on wooden benches. The air is hot, close. Outside, the sound of the market drifts in. Donkeys braying, vendors calling, the rhythm of daily life continuing beyond the walls. Socrates stands, not trembling, not weeping, simply speaking. He refuses to flatter the jury, to beg for mercy. He will not cry or bring his children in for sympathy, as others had done. Instead, he explains, he is not a threat to Athens. He is its cure. A gadfly, he says, buzzing about the great horse of the city. A horse grown sluggish, proud, and blind to its own decay. His role is to sting it back into awareness. He does not deny the charge of corrupting the youth. Instead, he challenges its meaning. Does anyone, he asks, truly wish to corrupt others, knowing that the corrupted may harm them in return? Would that not be foolish? And as for impiety, he speaks of a divine voice, a kind of inner guide that has steered him throughout his life. Not the traditional gods, perhaps, but something sacred nonetheless. The jury listens. Some are moved, many are not. When the votes are cast, the margin is narrow, but the verdict is guilty. Now comes a curious part of Athenian law. The convicted and the accusers must both propose punishments. Meletus and the others suggest death. Socrates? He proposes that he be rewarded. Free meals for life, he says, at the Prytaneum, the city's dining hall for heroes and honoured guests. The jury is not amused. Eventually, he offers to pay a modest fine. His friends urge him to offer more. He relents. A larger fine is suggested, but the damage is done. The jury perceives arrogance, defiance. They vote again. The sentence is sealed. Death by hemlock. The final day's Socrates' execution is delayed due to a sacred festival. For 30 days, no executions may occur, while the city's ship sails to Delos in honour of Apollo. So he waits, in prison, with friends, with time. He continues to speak about the soul, about virtue, about whether death is something to be feared. To him, death is either a dreamless sleep or a journey to a place where heroes reside, where he might ask questions of Achilles, of Odysseus, of the wise and the fallen. He fears neither. His friends plead with him. One, Crito, brings news. There is a way out, a plan, a boat, a path to freedom. Socrates shakes his head. He has lived by the laws of Athens. To flee now would betray them, and himself. And so, the cup is prepared. It is said he drank it calmly, walked for a time as instructed, and as the poison crept upward, feet, legs, chest, he spoke his final words. Crito, we owe a cock to Asclepius. Don't forget to pay the debt. A curious thing to say. Asclepius was the god of healing. Why thank him in death? Some believe Socrates meant this, that death for the just soul was not a loss, but a release, a healing, the end of confusion, the end of contradiction, the final clarity, legacy. He left behind no writings, only memories, and students, Plato, Xenophon, and countless others. And through their words, the questions continued. What is justice? What is the good life? What can we know? Questions without answers. But perhaps the questions were the point. Socrates is gone, but his presence lingers. Not as a figure of drama or tragedy, but as a quiet, enduring presence at the heart of philosophy. A voice asking, gently but insistently, whether we know what we think we know. And now we leave the prison, step out into the morning light of ancient Athens. Let the sun warm your shoulders, and follow the winding path beneath the Acropolis, beneath the great Parthenon. Something else waits. Not marble, not gods, but traces, remnants, forgotten corners of the city where time settled in layers of dust and ash. Let us go there next, to the ruins under the Acropolis, where whispers of forgotten homes, workshops, and sacred springs sleep beneath the stone. The trial of Socrates has ended. His voice, once echoing across the agora, has faded into silence. But Athens continues. Its streets busy, its temples lit, its daily rhythm undisturbed. And beneath all of it, something older lingers. Let us drift downward now, past the colonnades, beneath the stones walked upon for millennia. Imagine the sun gently dimming as you descend, one layer at a time, into the quiet folds of time, where the earth holds memories no longer spoken. You're no longer among the marble grandeur of the Parthenon, but beneath it. Down here, the white brightness softens into the amber glow of lamplight. This is where Athens hides her layers, temples forgotten, homes half remembered, dreams left behind in stone and clay. Beneath your feet lies the sanctuary of Asclepius, fed by a spring whose waters once trickled down the Acropolis's southern slope. This sanctuary was not for the powerful, but for the unwell, the desperate, the quietly hopeful. They came from the city and far beyond. Mothers carrying fevered children, old men limping from battle wounds, women with tired hearts and aching joints. They came to sleep. The ritual was called incubation. Pilgrims would bathe, offer a small sacrifice, often a cake, sometimes a coin, and lie down in the sleeping chamber, called the abaton. Some would bring votive offerings shaped like the part of them that needed healing. A carved ear for hearing, a leg for pain, a small clay womb. And they would wait for a dream. In this dream, the god Asclepius might appear. He might touch them, speak to them, or show them a cure. In the morning, priests would record the dream on stone tablets, some of which survive to this day. You can read them still. Messages carved 2,000 years ago. A man with no use of his hand dreamed the gods struck him with a staff. He awoke healed. Strange stories. Half miracle, half myth, half medicine. The sanctuary's stoa is still there. The columns broken, yes, but standing. In the spring, wild thyme grows at their base. Lizards sun themselves on the warm marble. A stillness lingers, broken only by the soft sound of the breeze moving through pine trees above. And just a short walk away, following a gently curving path cut into the hillside, you arrive at the theatre of Dionysus. Before tragedy was a literary genre, before comedy was a stand-up routine, it was here, on this slope, that Athenian drama was born. Picture the rising light of early day, the seats carved directly from stone, and thousands of citizens in tunics and cloaks, arriving just after dawn. There is no roof, there is no curtain, only the bright sun, the open sky, and the city gathered to watch itself reflected in story. The chorus enters first. A dozen men moving in unison, chanting lines written by Aeschylus or Euripides, their faces covered by painted masks. Then the actors, gods and mortals, kings and slaves, speaking in elevated poetry, arguing about justice, love, fate. There is no electricity, no artificial sound, just the natural acoustics of the stone and the voice. Some in the audience cry, some fidget, some nap in the sunlight. Children are hushed. Vendors pass by with figs and water. This is not just entertainment, it is a civic ritual. Athenian identity, morality, and memory are being shaped on stage. And when the play ends, perhaps a tragedy, perhaps a satire, everyone walks home along the same dusty path, minds full of gods and flawed heroes. But Athens, is not all temples and theatres. Down another gentle slope, into the now overgrown remains of the residential quarter, you find what most Athenians called home. Their dwellings were made of simple materials: mud brick walls, wooden beams, thatched roofs. They've long since decayed, but the foundations remain, and from these, a story unfolds. You can still trace the outline of courtyards, see where a hearth once burned, where a child once learned to walk. The courtyard was the centre of family life, open to the sky. It held the family's water basin, their household shrine, their vegetable jars. In spring, perhaps herbs grew along its edges: rosemary, bay, maybe a small fig tree if they were lucky. Women spent most of their lives within these walls, cooking, weaving, fetching water. A loom weight here, a spindle there. Bits of domestic life left behind like breadcrumbs. And the children. Boys until age 7 played freely, perhaps with wooden toys, perhaps just with sticks and stones. Some toys survive: tiny clay chariots, spinning tops, animal figurines. Imagine a child giggling as a small ceramic duck on wheels bumps along the courtyard stones. These homes shared walls with others. Privacy was limited. Neighbours heard everything: a cough at night, a lullaby, a shouted argument over bread. Life was close. It had to be. And beneath these homes, beneath the hearths and the sleeping mats, ran something invisible, but vital: the city's drainage system. Athens, for all its philosophy, needed sanitation. Its engineers dug stone-lined channels, simple but effective, to carry waste away from homes and public buildings. Rainwater flowed down carefully sloped streets into cisterns. Public fountains were placed at intervals, some of which still trickle today. Archaeologists have found unexpected treasures in these forgotten drains: a carved ivory hairpin, a child's sandal, shards of perfume bottles, still faintly fragrant after centuries. Not items deliberately left, but items lost, unnoticed, now gently unearthed. Further toward the western slope lies a reminder of Athens' layers. A Roman bathhouse, built atop older ruins, still revealing mosaic floors, intricate black and white patterns, meanders, waves, marine creatures. These patterns were walked on by bathers wrapped in towels, chatting about politics and family, unaware that they trod on earlier histories. And finally, nestled at the foot of the Acropolis rock like a jewel placed lovingly into a groove, stands the Odeon of Herodes Atticus. Built in the Roman period, yes, but inspired by Greek form. Its marble tiers curve around the orchestra like arms in an embrace. And to this day, 2,000 years on, it hosts music. In the summer, under moonlight, modern orchestras perform here. The sound rises up into the Acropolis above, and time folds briefly. You could sit there now, alone, long after a performance ends. The crowd gone, the marble still warm from the day's heat. The stone speaks in silence. And in that silence, if you're very still, you might feel them all: the priests, the actors, the children, the builders, the patients dreaming of healing. Athens was never just one city. It was thousands of cities, layered atop one another, each generation building upon the bones of the last. The city beneath the Acropolis is not lost. It is simply sleeping, remembered in fragments and ruins, waiting for you to pause long enough to hear it whisper. Let us now return to the surface, slowly, calmly, and prepare for our final passage. For in Athens, the day may end in toil, but the night belongs to another world entirely, the world of the elite, the philosophers, the wine bearers, and the flute girls. Let us now attend a symposium. You are standing before a great wooden door carved with vines, warmed by the last orange light of a long Athenian day. Beyond it lies the home of Nicias, a man of means, of military prestige, and more quietly, of taste. His household, like many of the upper class, is arranged around a central courtyard, shaded by olive trees and ringed with whitewashed columns. As the sun lowers behind the Acropolis, lanterns are lit, casting flickers of gold across the plaster walls. You are not a slave, nor quite a friend, merely a guest tonight. An observer. Your cloak is respectfully muted in colour. Your hands are clean. You are welcomed inside without fanfare, and the air greets you gently. Cool, perfumed with the faint sweetness of thyme and aged oil lamps. The symposium, this stylized dinner party of the elite, is not a simple meal. It is performance, ritual, exercise, escape. And Nicias hosts with a steady hand. Tonight, his andron, the men's dining room, is laid out in fine form. 9 couches arranged around a central crater, the great bowl that will hold the evening's wine. Each guest reclines sideways on his left elbow, sandals removed, robes adjusted loosely. Cushions are arranged beneath them for comfort, though no one makes a show of relaxing. There is always a faint tension beneath the surface. Status, cleverness, opinion, all will be tested tonight. A servant ladles the first round of wine. It is warm, spiced, diluted with water in the proper ratio of 3:1. It flows into ceramic kylixes, their interiors painted with playful figures, satyrs, dolphins, wrestling heroes. You notice the wine has a depth to its colour, almost a velvet red-black, and its smell is a reminder that fermentation is ancient and wise. The food arrives slowly, as it should. Not all at once, but in waves. There is no table. Platters circulate. Hands reach. Heads nod in silent thanks. A dish of barley cakes still warm from baking, their rough crust brushed with sesame and herbs. A small bowl of lentils with leeks, subtly spiced, savoury and simple. You hear a guest praise the cook, not the taste, but the restraint. Later come richer offerings, dried sardines packed with mint, sharp goat cheese wrapped in fig leaves, roasted game birds with their bones still warm, almonds in honey glaze, dark olives picked from the host's own grove in Attica, shining like stones after rain. But these pleasures, however fine, are background. The true purpose of this gathering is not consumption, but conversation. Nicias leans forward and proposes a question. Is a man's honour in his deeds or in his intentions? The room hums. One man, a thin fellow with clever eyes, launches into a story about a general who lost a battle but saved his men's lives by retreating. Another interrupts, quoting from Homer, "A man who runs is never called brave." Someone else begins citing Heraclitus, his words curling like smoke. Character is fate. The voices ripple. Some raise theirs. Some drop to a murmur. The conversation moves like a school of fish, turning suddenly, glittering unexpectedly, then vanishing into depth. Everyone listens, or pretends to. Not all comments are equal, and wit is a currency here. In a quiet moment, an older man remarks softly, "In the assembly, one must speak like thunder, but here, a whisper may carry farther." And then comes music. The flute girl enters, young, poised, eyes downcast but not invisible. She carries two slender pipes and begins a tune so delicate it almost merges with the sound of wind in the cypress trees outside. Her music is more than melody, it is mood. It unknots the shoulders, loosens tongues, suspends the ticking of time. Some guests close their eyes. One begins to hum. Another traces patterns on his cup. A man sings in a low voice, a tune from his island youth, about ships returning home with cargo and memory. He falters on a verse. Laughter, then applause. The entertainment continues in turns. A short comedy. Two guests don crude masks and imitate the philosophers in the agora. The others laugh too loud, a little drunk now, though no one dares laugh first unless Nicias does. Then a riddle is posed. What walks on two legs in the day, and none at night, yet never falls? The guesses are wrong. The answer, a shadow. There is clapping, but also thoughtfulness. Someone remarks that the soul is a kind of shadow too, cast by the flame of the body. He does not explain what he means. He doesn't need to. Eventually Nicias quiets the room with a gentle raising of his hand. He begins to speak, not as a general but as a father. He describes the dream his son had the night before, of flying but not with wings, only with a single word on his lips. Justice. The room goes still. Several men lower their gaze. There is power in admitting tenderness, especially in a city of orators and soldiers. Another guest changes the mood slightly. He raises his cup and offers a toast. To the city that we build each day with our minds, not our hands. And then, inevitably, politics. The talk turns to Sparta, not in fury, but in fatigue. The Peloponnesian War casts its long shadow even into such elegant rooms. There is no escaping it entirely. One man speaks of a cousin who died last winter, not from wounds, but from dysentery in a muddy camp. Another wonders aloud, how can a city remain free if it forgets what it means to rest? It is not clear if he means Athens or the men within it. There is a pause then, heavy and reverent. The music returns. The flute girl plays slower now, her melody echoing like moonlight through the empty porticos. The oil lamps flicker lower. You see one guest tilt his cup and watch the wine spin, thinking perhaps of the river Lethe, the river of forgetting. One by one, guests begin to recline more fully. A servant gently pulls a woolen wrap over the legs of an elderly man who has dozed off mid-sentence. Another guest stretches out his arm and murmurs a poem from memory, something about stars and fathers and fields. No one responds. They are listening in their own way. The courtyard is still. The air has cooled. A few petals from the laurel garland above have drifted down, unnoticed, to land upon the empty floor. And then it ends. There is no toast, no farewell. only the soft shuffling of feet, the low murmur of sandals on tile. One by one, the guests collect their cloaks. They walk into the night, back toward wives who waited, or didn't, back toward houses that stand quietly under the weight of war, of wisdom, of another Athenian evening concluded. Inside, the slaves clear the plates. The crater is washed and turned upside down to dry. The flute girl disappears behind a curtain, and the house returns to silence. Only the little fountain continues to speak in murmurs of water over stone. The moon shifts in the sky, and somewhere not far off, an owl calls, long and low. You remain, dear listener, in the hush of this ancient room. You may rest now too. Let the soft sounds of wine and water, of philosophy and music, wrap you gently. Let the worries of the present fade into the stillness of the past. You have walked the narrow lanes, tasted the olives, heard the poetry, watched men speak their truths into the night, and now you sleep, just as they did, beneath a roof of stars and fading firelight. And so ends your journey through the streets, fields, and flickering candlelit rooms of ancient Athens. You have stood among the workers in the agora, felt the dust of the marketplace cling to your feet. You've stepped into the shadows of temples, past statues with eyes of ivory and glass. You've sat quietly beside a boy as he learned his letters, watched a potter shape clay that might last 1,000 years. And now you have reclined among the city's elite, listening to their hopes, their fears, their laughter fading slowly into the dark. The voices have gone still. The lamps are out. Even the city has drawn its breath and gone quiet for the night. Outside, somewhere in the hills beyond the city walls, a shepherd leans against his crook, gazing upward. The stars are older than all of this. They watched as Athens rose, and later as it fell. But tonight, none of that matters. There is only this moment, this slow exhale of a civilization at rest. The past is no longer distant. It is a soft room around you now, a woven blanket of memory and myth, of small sounds and forgotten lives. You are no longer just a visitor to history. You are part of it. A quiet observer, a dreaming soul carried gently down the stream of time. So let yourself drift. Let the weight of thought dissolve into the silence between words. Let the hum of the flute and the lapping of water on marble lull your mind into stillness. Let the warmth of firelight fade behind your eyes. You are safe here. You are home. And as sleep gathers around you like the folds of a well-worn cloak, remember, the people of the past were not so different. They too longed for peace, for rest. They too closed their eyes at night, hoping for dreams of something brighter. And tonight, perhaps, you'll meet them there. Good night, sleep well, and may history keep watch until morning comes.